October 15, 2023. Tonight was supposed to be one of the proudest moments of my life. Instead, it became my deepest humiliation. 7 years. 7 years of discoveries, curation, and countless late nights, all evaporated in the clink of champagne glasses at the MoMA. I stood there in my carefully selected black Valentino dress, which cost me 3 months of savings, watching Daniel accept the Curator of the Year award for an exhibition where I discovered the artists. I was the one who convinced Leila Chen to emerge from her Beijing studio to showcase her stunning installations. I found Tomas in that abandoned warehouse in Brooklyn, whose works made from reclaimed materials now sell for hundreds of thousands. But in Daniel's acceptance speech, my name wasn't even mentioned. Instead, he said these words: "I'd like to take this opportunity to announce some personal news. My partner Maya and I have parted ways. I found my true soulmate in my new gallery director, Sophia Martinez." The room went silent, then erupted in whispers. Hundreds of eyes turned to me, some sympathetic, others with barely disguised schadenfreude. I felt the blood drain from my face. 7 years of relationship, 7 years of professional collaboration. And just like that, in front of New York's art elite, he not only erased my professional contributions but publicly humiliated me. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I simply turned and walked out of the room, through the staring crowd. Once in the bathroom, I threw up violently. Leila found me and took me home. Now I'm lying in his apartment, which he won't return to tonight. I know he'll be with her. I just don't know how long this betrayal has been going on. I feel so stupid, so blind, so erased. October 20th, 2023. I moved out of the apartment today. Daniel generously gave me 2 weeks to pack, but I couldn't stand another minute in that space. I'm in Leila's guest room now until I find my own place. I went to the gallery to collect my things and found my name already removed from the website. 7 years of work, like I never existed. My office had been cleared out, Sophia's nameplate already on the door. I asked Jamie at reception where my files were. My notes, contacts, dossiers on artists I'd discovered. He looked uncomfortable, told me Daniel had instructed them to consolidate all files into the main system. In other words, my work now officially belonged to the gallery. To Daniel. When I demanded at least my personal notebooks back, James told me Daniel claimed they were company property, as they were produced during work hours. I have no contract proving my contributions. No formal position, just a vague partner title and a joint bank account that Daniel has already emptied except for my own salary deposits. I feel sick, not just because he stole my heart, but because he stole my life's work. October 25th, 2023. I consulted with Leila's friend Marco, who's a lawyer today. It's not good. Do you have any documentation proving you discovered these artists? Emails? Contracts? I shook my head. We always worked informally. Daniel handled all the paperwork while I found the talent. I trusted him. Is your name on any gallery documents at all? Another head shake. I always worked as a representative of Daniel Harmon Gallery. I never thought to ask for more. Marco sighed. You could file a lawsuit, but honestly, it would be an uphill battle and likely get you labeled as difficult in the industry. I know he's right. The art world is a small circle. Daniel is already spreading rumors that I'm emotionally unstable, professionally inadequate. I've received several texts from concerned friends who have heard things. My reputation is being dismantled before I've even begun to fight. October 30, 2023. I decided to stop waiting for the art world to come to my rescue. This morning, I made 2 phone calls that terrified me. But I couldn't bear sitting in Leila's guest room for another day, watching my career evaporate. First, I called Tomas. His assistant initially said he was unavailable, but when I gave my name, he came to the phone almost immediately. "Maya, I've been trying to reach you," he said, his voice a mixture of concern and caution. "Daniel told everyone you'd had some kind of breakdown. And you believed him?" I asked, trying to keep the hurt from my voice. There was a pause. "No, not really, but this business. You know how it is." I did know. Reputation is currency in the art world and Daniel controls the bank. "I found you, Tomas," I said quietly. "In that warehouse with no electricity, using discarded machine parts to create something beautiful. I recognized what you were doing before anyone else. That was me, not Daniel." Another pause. "I know." He finally admitted. "Daniel couldn't tell a Basquiat from a bathroom graffiti without you. But Maya, he's threatening to drop artists who associate with you." I felt sick, but not surprised. Has he always been this way? Thomas laughed, a bitter sound. "You know what he said to me once when he was drunk? He said, 'I have the connections, but Maya has the eye. Without her, I'm just another rich guy with a gallery.' I think that's what scares him most about losing you." After we hung up, I called Leila Chen in Beijing. Unlike Thomas, she answered immediately. "This man is a thief," she said bluntly. "Not just of your heart but of your mind. Your vision? Can you help me?" I asked. "I need to rebuild. You know I would in a heartbeat, Maya. But my contract with the gallery." "I understand," I said, though the disappointment was crushing. "But," she continued, "not everyone has signed such restrictive terms. And not everyone fears Daniel as much as they should." She gave me 3 names. Emerging artists I'd scouted but Daniel hadn't yet signed. People who might still be willing to work with me, if I could find a platform. I hung up and stared at the names. It's not much, but it's a start. A seed of an idea is forming. Daniel took my past work, but he can't take my eye, my instincts. I just need to find a way to prove myself again, to build something he can't claim as his own. For the first time since that night at MoMA, I feel something other than despair. It's small, fragile, but unmistakable, the first spark of a plan. I've sent out 37 resumes, 0 responses. Today I finally understood why. My friend Eliza, who works at Gagosian, called to tell me that Daniel has emailed every major gallery and museum director in New York claiming I have professional ethics issues, and implying I tried to poach artists from his gallery. It's a small world, the art scene. And apparently I'm now persona non grata. November 28, 2023. I took a job as a museum guide at the Metropolitan Museum of Art today. The pay is barely enough to cover the rent on my new studio apartment in Washington Heights, a far cry from our Soho loft. But it's something. The humiliation stings. I have a master's degree in art history from Columbia. I've curated exhibitions that have been featured in Art Forum. And now I'm explaining basic art concepts to tourists. I saw Sophia at a cafe yesterday. She was wearing my favorite scarf, one I couldn't find when packing. She didn't see me. I ducked behind a display stand, hating myself for hiding, for feeling ashamed when I've done nothing wrong. I wonder if she knows. If she knows that Daniel's brilliant eye for emerging talent was actually mine. If she knows that the man she's with is capable of such calculated cruelty. Or maybe she does know, and simply doesn't care. December 15, 2023. Christmas party season. I'm not invited anywhere this year. My social media is filled with images from openings and events I used to attend. Daniel and Sophia are everywhere, champagne glasses raised, her hand possessively on his arm. I've stopped looking. Today a visitor at the museum asked if I was just a guide, or if I knew anything substantive about the Impressionist collection. I gave him a 20-minute detailed analysis of Monet's water lilies and their influence on abstract expressionism. He looked stunned. It was the first time I felt like myself in months. January 3, 2024. New year, new low. I ran into Daniel at an opening I attended with Leila. He looked right through me, then whispered something to his companion that made them both laugh. I felt like I was back in high school, the outcast watching the popular kids from afar. Leila squeezed my hand and whispered, "He's threatened by you." I nearly laughed. Threatened? By what? I have nothing. You have everything he doesn't? She said. Talent, integrity, and the truth. I wish I could believe her. January 20, 2024. Something unexpected happened today, though perhaps not entirely by chance. Last week, I overheard two senior curators discussing Victor Abramson's upcoming visit to the museum. The Victor Abramson, abstract expressionist legend, now in his 80s and rarely seen in public, I immediately requested to lead his tour group, leveraging my expertise in post-war American art. My supervisor was reluctant. These VIP tours usually go to senior guides, but I was persistent. I wrote my master's thesis on the evolution of abstract expressionism from Kandinsky to Abramson. I argued, I know his work better than anyone here. It wasn't entirely true, but it was true enough. When Victor arrived in his wheelchair, I was ready. Throughout the tour, I made sure to highlight connections between exhibited works and his own artistic evolution, subtly demonstrating my knowledge of his less famous pieces. He began asking questions, testing me, I realized, about techniques, influences, historical context. After the tour, when the rest of the group dispersed, he wheeled himself over to me. "You know your stuff," he said bluntly. "What are you doing giving tours?" Before I could formulate a polite response, I found myself telling him everything. The words poured out like water through a broken dam. Daniel, the betrayal, the blacklisting. Victor listened without interruption, his eyes sharp despite his 86 years. When I finished, he didn't offer immediate sympathy or outrage. Instead, he looked thoughtful. "I knew Daniel's father," he said finally. "Arthur Harmon. Talented collector, terrible painter, though he never accepted that. Sounds like the son inherited the worst parts." He studied me for a moment. "You know, I've made my own mistakes. In the 50s, there were women painters, brilliant ones, working alongside us men. We drank with them, debated with them, slept with them. But when the galleries came calling, when MoMA was building its collection, somehow it was only the men who got the shows, the recognition." He looked away, his voice softer. "I didn't speak up then. Didn't want to rock the boat. It's one of my greatest regrets." Then, abruptly changing tone, "I need someone to catalog my collection. My eyesight is failing, and my memory isn't what it was. I need someone who knows art history and can recognize significance. Someone I can trust." "Why me?" I asked. He smiled, but there was sadness in it. "Maybe this is my chance to finally get something right. I start next week." February 12, 2024. Victor's collection is extraordinary. His home in the Upper East Side is essentially a private museum, filled with works spanning his 60-year career and pieces traded with contemporaries. A Rauschenberg here, a de Kooning there, casually displayed like family photos. The job pays twice what the museum did, and I've given my notice there. For the first time in months, I feel like I can breathe. Victor doesn't care about the art world gossip. When I mentioned Daniel's name, he waved his hand dismissively. That boy, all flash, no substance. He wouldn't know a masterpiece if it bit him on the ass. I laughed so hard I cried. March 7, 2024. I found something today in Victor's storage room, wrapped in acid, free paper and carefully boxed. Were 15 canvases I didn't recognize. The style was distinctive. Bold, geometric patterns interspersed with organic forms, vibrant colors contrasting with areas of contemplative emptiness. "Victor," I called, wheeling him into the storage room. Whose work squinted at them. Then his face changed. He said softly. Eleanor read. I frowned. The name wasn't familiar, which was unusual given my knowledge of mid-century American artists. "You wouldn't know her," Victor said, reading my expression. "Few do. She was brilliant, one of the most innovative painters of the 1960s. But she was also a woman, and black, in an era when the art world only had room for white men like me." He told me how Eleanor had been part of their circle, how her work had been praised privately but overlooked publicly, how galleries refused to represent her, how critics dismissed her as derivative when she was anything but. "She gave up eventually," Victor said, his voice heavy with regret. "Stop painting. These might be the only surviving examples of her work. She gave them to me for safekeeping before she disappeared from the scene. I stared at the canvases, feeling a chill. Another woman erased from art history, another voice silenced. What happened to her? I asked. She died in 1982. Cancer. Virtually unknown. I looked at the paintings again, seeing them with new eyes. They were masterpieces, works that should be hanging in museums, studied in art history classes, celebrated for their innovation and vision. Victor, I said slowly, these need to be seen. March 20, 2024. I've spent 2 weeks researching Eleanor Reid. There's almost nothing about her in the official art historical record. A few mentions in exhibition catalogs, a single review dismissing her as Rothko's less talented imitator, so which is absurd, her style is entirely her own. But I found her niece living in Chicago. We spoke for hours on the phone. She has photographs, letters, journals, an entire archive documenting Eleanor's career and the systematic exclusion she faced. No one has ever called about her work, she told me, her voice cracking. I thought she was forgotten forever. I'm going to Chicago next week to see the materials. Victor is fully supportive. This could be your way back, he said. But more importantly, it's Eleanor's way forward, even if she's not here to see it. For the first time in months, I feel a sense of purpose burning inside me. April 10, 2024. I've spent the past 2 weeks in Chicago with Eleanor's niece, Denise. The materials she's preserved are extraordinary. Eleanor's journals detail her artistic process, her struggles, her innovations. There are photographs of works now lost, correspondence with other artists, including Victor, rejection letters from galleries citing reasons that thinly veil their prejudice. Most importantly, there's documentation proving the provenance of Victor's paintings and establishing their chronology. Eleanor was working with geometric abstraction years before many of the male artists who became famous for it. I've begun drafting a proposal for an exhibition, not just of Eleanor's work, but contextualizing it within the broader movement of artists, particularly women and artists of color, who were systematically excluded from the canon. Victor has connections at the Metropolitan Museum. He believes they might be interested. I'm working meticulously, documenting everything, creating a paper trail that cannot be disputed or appropriated. I will not make the same mistake twice. April 15, 2024. I ran into Sophia today at the Whitney. I was there researching female abstract expressionists for the Eleanor Reid proposal when I turned a corner and nearly collided with her. For a moment, we just stared at each other. She was wearing my scarf again, the blue silk one with the hand-painted design that my mother gave me. I felt a surge of anger, but also something unexpected, pity. Maya, she said, finally recovering first. I heard you were working as a tour guide. And I heard you were working as Daniel's puppet. I replied, surprising myself with my directness. Her perfect composure slipped, just for a second. You don't know what you're talking about, don't I? Let me guess. He tells you you're brilliant, that you have an exceptional eye, that together you'll revolutionize the gallery. He makes you feel special, indispensable, until the day you're not. She glanced around nervously. We shouldn't be having this conversation here. Why not? Afraid someone might see you talking to the crazy ex. That's not. She started, then stopped. He didn't tell me about you at first. About your role in the gallery. By the time I figured it out, you were already in too deep. I finished for her? She nodded slightly. He's not what you think, Maya. He's not some mastermind. He's desperate. Terrified of being exposed as a fraud. His father was a terrible painter but wouldn't admit it. I said, remembering Victor's words. Sophia looked surprised. How did you know? It doesn't matter. What matters is that you're making the same mistake I did. Letting him take credit for your work. It's not that simple, she said, but I could see doubt in her eyes. Never is. But Sophia, when he's done with you, and he will be done with you eventually, what will you have to show for it? Your name on anything. Any proof of your contributions. She didn't answer, but her hand went to the scarf. My scarf, at her throat. Keep it? I said, nodding at the scarf. Consider it a warning label. As I walked away, she called after me, Maya! The Eleanor Reid project. Be careful. Daniel knows about it. I stopped cold. How? He has sources at the Met. He's already talking about his research on forgotten female artists. I felt sick, but also strangely calm. Thank you for telling me. She nodded once, then turned and walked quickly away. I stood there for a long moment, processing. Daniel knows about Eleanor. He's already positioning to steal this too. But this time, I'm not the naive partner who trusted blindly. This time I have allies, and this time I'm ready for him. May 15, 2024. The Met's contemporary art curator came to Victor's apartment today to view Eleanor's work. Harriet Chen spent 3 hours examining the paintings, reading through my research, asking pointed questions. This is significant, she finally said. Not just the work itself, which is remarkable, but the narrative of erasure. It speaks to our current moment. She wants to present my proposal to the board for a special exhibition in their modern wing. It would open next spring. I should be ecstatic, but I'm terrified. This is my chance to rebuild my career, to do something meaningful. But I know how this world works. News travels fast. What will happen when Daniel hears? June 3, 2024. It happened sooner than I expected. Victor received a call from Daniel today. Your little assistant has quite the imagination, Daniel apparently said. Dana Reid has been on my research radar for years. In fact, I've been planning an exhibition of her work for my gallery's fall season. A complete lie. If he'd known about Eleanor, he would have mounted the show years ago and taken all the credit. Victor, bless him, was having none of it. Strange that in all our conversations over the years, you never once mentioned her name, he told Daniel, and stranger still that you'd suddenly develop an interest just as Maya uncovers her work. Daniel backpedaled, claimed there had been a misunderstanding. Then he had the audacity to suggest a collaboration. His gallery, his name at the top, naturally. Victor hung up on him. He'll try to stop this, I said, feeling sick. Victor squeezed my hand. Let him try? June 20, 2024. The board meeting was today. I presented my research, showed slides of Eleanor's work, explained the historical significance of this rediscovery. I was halfway through when the door opened and Daniel walked in with Sophia. I apologize for the interruption, he said smoothly, but I felt it necessary to attend given that this project builds on research my gallery has been conducting. The board chair looked confused. Mr. Harmon, this is a closed meeting. Daniel smiled, that charming smile that once made my heart flutter. Dr. Chen kindly informed me of the presentation, given our gallery's interest in Ms. Reed's work. I looked at Dr. Chen, who had the grace to look embarrassed. I thought it might be beneficial to have multiple perspectives, she murmured. Daniel proceeded to interject throughout the remainder of my presentation, questioning my interpretation, suggesting alternative approaches, positioning himself as the authority. The board was clearly uncomfortable with the tension, but unwilling to eject someone of Daniel's stature. At the end, the chair thanked us both and said they would need time to consider the proposals. Proposals plural. Somehow Daniel had transformed my presentation into a competition. As we left, Daniel caught up to me in the hallway. You're out of your depth, Maya, he whispered. Walk away now, and I'll make sure you get a research credit on the exhibition catalog. I looked him in the eye, this man I once loved and saw nothing but ambition and emptiness. You've taken enough from me, I said. You won't take Eleanor too. July 8, 2024. The board has requested a joint presentation from Daniel and me next month. A collaborative approach, they call it. I spent an hour crying in Victor's bathroom after I got the news. Then I washed my face and started planning. Daniel has resources, connections, and reputation. I have the actual research, the relationship with Eleanor's family, and the truth. But in this world, is that enough? July 25, 2024, a complication. One of the key pieces in Victor's collection, perhaps Eleanor's most significant work, has been questioned by the Met's Authentication Department. They want additional documentation proving it was created in 1958 as I've claimed and not later, after similar styles had emerged. The documentation exists. I saw a dated photograph of Eleanor with the painting in Denise's collection. But it's in Chicago and the board meeting is in 2 weeks. I need to go back to Chicago. Now, July 30, 2024. We need to talk strategy. Victor announced this evening. Daniel won't play fair, and neither should we. I just returned from Chicago with the authentication materials, exhausted but relieved. Victor had invited Leila in town for an exhibition to join us for dinner, and Denise was on video call from Chicago. First, Victor said, let's assess what we're up against. Maya, what do we know about Daniel's tactics? He'll try to discredit me personally, I said. Paint me as unstable, vindictive. He'll claim prior knowledge of Eleanor's work without evidence, and he'll leverage his relationships with board members. His already started? Leila confirmed. At the Guggenheim opening last week, he was telling anyone who would listen that you're obsessed with him, that this whole project is just to get his attention. I felt my face burn with anger and embarrassment. That's actually good news, Victor said, surprising us all. How is that possibly good? I demanded. Because it means he's scared. Victor explained. He's attacking you personally because he can't attack the work or the research. It's a position of weakness, not strength. Denise, who had been quietly listening, spoke up from the laptop screen. My aunt faced the same tactic. Her journals document how male artists would dismiss her work by questioning her mental stability or suggesting improper relationships. History repeating itself, I murmured. Which is exactly why we need to change the narrative, Leila said firmly. This isn't just about you versus Daniel anymore. It's about Eleanor. About every artist who's been erased. Leila's right, Victor said. Daniel wants to make this personal. We make it historical. They began strategizing. Victor would reach out to his old contacts at MoMA and the Whitney, ensuring the Eleanor raid story spread beyond the Met. Leila offered to bring influential critics to see the work privately before the board meeting. Denise would prepare a statement about her aunt's legacy and the family's support of my curation. What about Sophia? I asked suddenly. She warned me about Daniel knowing. There might be more she could tell us. Can you trust her? Leila asked skeptically. Not entirely, I admitted. But she's starting to see Daniel clearly. And she has access to his files, his emails. Dangerous, Victor warned. If she's playing both sides, I'll be careful, I promised. But we need to know what he's planning. As the evening wound down, I realized something had shifted. For months, I'd been fighting alone, reactive, defensive. Now I had a team, a strategy. For the first time, I felt like I might actually win. There's one more thing, Victor said as Leila was leaving. Tomorrow, I'm changing my will to donate Eleanor's paintings to whichever institution mounts an exhibition curated by you, Maya. Not Daniel. Not a collaboration? You. Victor, you don't have to. It's not for you, he interrupted gruffly. It's for Eleanor, and for all the others I stayed silent about. It's time to make things right. I looked around at these people who had become my allies. Victor with his influence and regrets. Leila with her fierce loyalty, Denise with her family's legacy. We were an unlikely team, but together, we might just be strong enough to stand against the Daniel Harmons of the art world. For the first time in this whole ordeal, I felt something unexpected, not just determination but actual hope. August 2, 2024. I found it, not just the photograph but Eleanor's original sketches for the painting, dated and annotated. Denise also discovered a letter from a gallery owner rejecting the work in 1959. Further proof of its date. As I was leaving Dinez's house, my phone rang. It was Dr. Chen. Maya, I thought you should know. Daniel Harmon submitted a formal challenge to your proposal today, claiming intellectual property infringement. He says the Eleanor Raid project was his idea originally, and that you stole his research when you worked at his gallery. My hand started shaking so badly I had to put the phone on speaker. He's provided emails, she continued, showing that he was researching female abstract expressionists as far back as 2021. Of course he had. Because I was the one who wrote those emails, researching under the gallery's name, under his direction. I understand this puts you in a difficult position, I said carefully, but I can prove those were my research initiatives. How? Dr. Chen asked. And suddenly I knew. August 10, 2024, the joint presentation to the board was today. Daniel went first, smooth and confident as always. He spoke eloquently about Eleanor Raid's significance, about the importance of elevating overlooked female artists, about his gallery's long commitment to diversity. He presented a slick exhibition proposal, complete with mock-ups and a marketing plan. He mentioned my name once, describing me as a former assistant who had shown interest in the project. When it was my turn, I didn't talk about Eleanor immediately. Instead, I opened with a question. What makes a curator? I asked. Is it the ability to recognize greatness, to contextualize art within historical movements, to bring forgotten voices into the light? I paused, looking at each board member. Or is it simply having your name on the door? I then presented my evidence, not just about Eleanor, but about myself. Emails recovered from cloud backups showing my research, testimonials from artists I had discovered, and most damning of all, correspondence between Daniel and gallery owners where he explicitly took credit for my discoveries. I was erased. I said simply, just as Eleanor was erased. The difference is I'm still here to fight for recognition. The room was silent when I finished. Daniel's face had gone from confident to ashen. Then Victor spoke. He hadn't told me he was coming, but there he was, his wheelchair positioned at the back of the room. I've known Daniel Harmon for 15 years, he said, his voice carrying despite his age, and I've known Eleanor Reid's work for 60. I can state unequivocally that Daniel never showed the slightest interest in her art until Maya discovered it in my collection. Furthermore, I can attest that Maya's curatorial eye is exceptional, far superior to Daniel's, who has built his career on the talents of others. The board chair cleared her throat. Mr. Harmon, do you have a response to these allegations? Daniel attempted to recover, claiming misunderstandings, suggesting I was motivated by personal grievances. But his usual charm had deserted him. This is absurd, he finally sputtered. Maya was my partner, professionally and personally. Everything she did was under my guidance, my mentorship. She's twisting things because she's bitter about our breakup. Is that why you emptied our joint bank account? I asked quietly. Because I was your partner. A board member, an older woman I didn't know well, leaned forward. Mr. Harmon, did you claim his winner's work as your own? Daniel's face flushed. For a moment, something flashed in his eyes. Not just anger but a flash of genuine pain, almost vulnerability. You don't understand, he said, his voice suddenly less assured. In this business, perception is everything. My father taught me that. You have to project confidence, authority. You can't show weakness. As recognizing talent weakness, the woman asked. Daniel looked at me then, really looked at me, perhaps for the first time in years. I did discover artists, he said quietly. I discovered Maya. The admission hung in the air, unexpected and strangely honest. And then you tried to erase me, I replied, my voice steady despite the churning emotions. He had no answer for that. When the board asked us to step outside while they deliberated, Daniel stood alone in the hallway. The confident facade crumbling. For a brief moment, I saw what Victor had described. A man terrified of being exposed as a fraud, carrying his father's legacy of insecurity. An hour later, we were called back in. The chair announced that the Met would proceed with the Eleanor Raid exhibition under my sole curation, with a planned opening in spring 2025. As we left the building, Daniel grabbed my arm. You've made an enemy today, he hissed, but the threat sounded hollow, the words of a man who knew he was beaten. I looked at him calmly. No, Daniel. I've simply stopped being afraid of one. Outside, Victor waited with Leila and Denise, who had flown in as a surprise. As we celebrated with champagne at a nearby cafe, I excused myself briefly and stepped outside. The victory was sweet, but complicated. 7 years of my life had been tied to Daniel. Cutting those bonds, even toxic ones, left marks. My phone buzzed with a text from Sophia. Congratulations. He had it coming. P.S. I quit today. I smiled and rejoined my friends, my real allies, feeling lighter than I had in months. December 15, 2024. The past few months have been a whirlwind. The exhibition planning is in full swing. Eleanor's niece Denise has agreed to loan her entire collection of materials. 3 other museums have discovered works by Eleanor in their storage that had been misattributed, or simply forgotten. Daniel has retreated from public view. I heard his gallery is struggling. Several artists have left, including Leila, who publicly credited me with discovering her work. Sophia has taken a position at a small but respected gallery in Chelsea. As for me, I've received offers from 3 institutions for curatorial positions after the Eleanor Raid exhibition opens. Victor jokes that I should start my own gallery instead. The Maya Winters gallery has a nice ring to it, he says. The betrayal still hurts sometimes. I still have moments of anger, of grief for what I lost. But those moments are fewer now, overshadowed by the excitement of what I'm building. March 20, 2025. Tonight was the preview opening of Eleanor Reid Restoration of Vision at the Metropolitan Museum of Art. My name is on the wall as curator. My research forms the backbone of the catalog. My vision shaped the exhibition that critics are already calling groundbreaking and long overdue. Victor came in his wheelchair, beaming with pride. Denise flew in from Chicago with her entire family. Leila brought champagne. Even some of my former colleagues from Daniel's gallery came, offering quiet apologies and congratulations. Daniel wasn't there, of course, but his absence felt insignificant. As I watched visitors engage with Eleanor's work, these brilliant paintings that had been hidden away for decades, I realized something profound. This exhibition isn't just Eleanor's restoration to the canon, it's my restoration too. My voice, my eye, my name, no longer invisible. In her journal, Eleanor once wrote, "They may erase my name, but they cannot erase my vision. What I have seen and created exists whether they acknowledge it or not." She was right, and now the world can see what she saw. What I see, the invisible, made visible at last.